All right, let's get the rigmarole out of the way before we start this podcast. Remember, guys, this podcast posts every single Saturday. We go through all the NFL news you need to know about. We also go through some of the deep cuts that the national media doesn't talk about. We go through basically every single NFL team, every single podcast, because I know people are sick and tired of hearing about the Patriots. Who's going to take every single day? It's like, ooh, who's going to take the Patriots down? Oh, how great of an offseason did the Patriots have? I mean, then we got to sit here and talk about Richard Sherman and why Pete Carroll and Richard Sherman don't get along. Why Richard Sherman's still mad about losing a Super Bowl. Wouldn't you be if you lost the Super Bowl anyway? I'm sick and tired of hearing about the same thing. So it's nice that I get to talk about this stuff with you guys. All right, so this first piece of news is about the LA Rams, because LA just really needed another team, didn't they? The whole Jared Goff, they had a pretty. This is about them signing their top 3 picks. They had a pretty decent draft for what they were given. Obviously, they mortgaged their future basically to get Jared Goff. It didn't work out. I thought Jeff Fisher really handled it wrong, especially when you take somebody with the number 1 overall pick. You have to. Your team, first of all, your offense was really, really not that talented. You didn't do the greatest job of surrounding him with talent in that draft. So obviously I think that was a priority in this draft. The sad thing is about this past draft was it was really defensive heavy. But there was a lot of the wide receiver depth was really deep. So that's a good thing for them. Obviously the tight end depth was really deep. So it was also, if you think about it, the running back depth was pretty dang deep too. It was a pretty dang good offensive draft too. So this draft's actually I think this draft's gonna have a lot of potential to be one of the better ones of the last decade. So this is about them signing their top 3 picks, which include tight end Gerald Everett, can never say his name right, wide receiver Cooper Kupp, and defensive back Josh Johnson. Cooper Kupp is probably my favorite pick. Him and Jared Goff should have a really good rapport, growing up together, developing together. It's going to be, I think they're going to have a really good connection. Cooper Kupp is a really good wide receiver. Sorry, I said that like a 4-year-old. He reminds a lot of people of Jarvis Landry just because of his hands. I don't think he's not the freight train that is Jarvis Landry when he gets the ball in his hands. He's not the greatest run after the catch guy, but he is still elusive. I'm just not saying, because Jarvis is in the top 3 in my opinion in rack in the NFL. I don't think he can be that ever, but he can be that Edelman elusive in the open field kind of guy. Not just because he's white, just because that's the only one I can really think of that's that elusive in terms of a really good slot receiver. So obviously Gerald Everett should give them some obviously extra need. They obviously got Tyler Higbee in the last draft out of Western Kentucky, and that really hasn't panned out that well. So obviously they need to start. Obviously losing Kenny Britt in free agency, not getting Alshon Jeffrey in free agency. They really did a poor job. I mean, they're really, it's a tough world down there in LA. But they have an all world, all class Super Bowl caliber defense. Obviously, they lost T.J. McDonald, which I think is a big deal because he was a big part of that defense, and William Hayes was too. So they lost some big pieces there, but they still have a ton of talent there in LA. So their defense is still really good. Their offense is terrible. It was terrible last season, one of the worst I've ever seen. It was literally and statistically, in some categories, worse than the Cleveland Browns, which is saying a lot. And so it's not all Jared Goff's fault, is my point, and they should be better because obviously those 2 guys, and obviously Josh Jones is not a wide receiver or a running back or an offensive lineman, which they really needed as well. Anyway, all right, so let's move on from the LA Rams because as my thing loads up here. The next story is Michael Orr could be done in Carolina. Obviously, his breakout season, but his best season was with the Carolina Panthers in 2015. That was by far his best season, in my opinion. Obviously, he spent a lot of years in Baltimore. Excuse me. But last season, the Panthers' offensive line was atrocious. And he's 31 years old, so he's getting up there in age. It sounds like Dave Gettleman really doesn't care about him anymore. Obviously, he's had trouble staying healthy. And the pillars of the Panthers' offensive line is what you got to worry about if you're a Panthers fan, because you went out, you got Matt Khalil, who is his rookie year and All-Pro, which that's a good sign. But ever since then, he hasn't really been that guy anymore. So that's probably a concern. He hasn't been that good. And then obviously he's one of the biggest reasons he can't stay healthy. And then in your interior of your offensive line is better than almost anybody if you think about it. Andrew Norwell, who's a beast. He's one of the best young players in the league. Then you got Ryan Khalil in the middle, who's been a mainstay. He's been excellent for his entire career, All-Pro multiple times at center. And then you go next to him, and that's Trey Turner, who is, again, one of the better young offensive linemen in the league. So that interior is as good as it gets. And then just the bookends, the pillars on the outside are what you got to worry about. I think Matt Kalil is definitely an upgrade for Mike Rimmers. And then on the other side, I really don't know if you can be so confident in that. So that is a concern for the Carolina Panthers. It's going to be interesting to see if that the Khalil brothers become a dynamic duo. I know because Ryan Khalil, as long as he can stay healthy, both of them, as long as they can stay healthy, but especially Ryan, it's basically a lock there for the center position. All right, so obviously another story that just popped up. Calvin Pryor discusses trade Jets to Cleveland. I think the Jets are a bunch of liars, especially saying I don't think he's. We talked about this before, so I'm just going to say the whole locker room thing, that was everybody on that team, including people like Darrelle Revis and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Brandon Marshall. All of those guys were bad locker room guys. Calling out coaches, the GM, the entire regime there, it was that nobody was leading that team. There was not one leader on that team. The culture literally fell out from under itself. It was that bad. So the Jets really have to fix. Obviously, they're hoping Jamal Adams does that, which is one of the bigger reasons they drafted him, is because he is a culture changer. He's a great leader. Derek Carr could get $25 million per year, so that would be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. If he could be the first $25 million man a year at the quarterback position, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he is Derek Carr. Depending how long the contract is, that's the thing. I mean, $25 million over like 8 years, that's a lot of money, man. So I don't know, like, let's just say it's 5 years. That's still a ton of cash. But let's see here. It says it doesn't say the extent of the contract. Yeah, obviously Andrew Luck got close to that. He's got $87 million guaranteed in his contract, but obviously Derek's still young. He's 26. So I don't know how long they're going to extend him. It's going to be interesting to see. But obviously, a lot of people, listen, I'm a Dolphins fan, and a lot of people are like, oh, Tannehill's knee, obviously he tore it partially. He didn't tear anything. He just injured his knee. Let's just put it that way. Let's not get into the nitty-gritty of that injury. And then obviously Derek Carr breaks his fibula, literally breaks his fibula, which is in your leg, in case you basically snapping your leg in half, right? And then you go to Marcus Mariota and does the same thing. Nobody is worried about those two. That's a severe injury, guys. That is a severe injury, especially for a football player. So it's going to be interesting to see if they are going to start off slow, which I would expect them both to. Especially to their standards, I would expect them both to start slow. Hopefully they can get warmed up fast for those respective teams. But I really, really am dumbfounded at how nobody is worried about that. This is some sad news if you're a Detroit Lions fan. This will hit you right in your soul, because the offensive line has been a bunch of no-names for a while for you guys, meaning not the greatest guys in the world. And obviously you guys did a tremendous job at upgrading it. But this piece of news is some bad news. Tyler Decker out for 4 to 6 months. You can read the whole article by Connor Bine on NFL.com, whenever you want to read it. The shoulder injury that the Lions left tackle Tyler Decker, this is reading the article. Gunner, that's my dog. He's barking hard. During organized team activities seems worse than initially feared. The 22-year-old suffered a torn labrum and will sit out for 6 months, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL.com. Decker now looks like a candidate to being 2017 on the physical unable to perform list, which would cost the second-year man at least the first 6 weeks of the regular season. That is not good if you're a Lions fan, because he started off really slow, and towards the end of the year he really showed out why they drafted him out of Michigan. So it's it sucks for Matthew Stafford. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully he can play a little bit earlier, but it sounds like he's not going to be able to, especially if they put him on PUP or wherever they put him. The physically unable to perform list, PUP. I'm pretty sure that's the same thing. Pretty sure I just got that wrong. Anyway, the Jets are interested in linebacker Eric Walden. They've been signing. Obviously, they signed Spencer Pasinger, who's a former Miami Dolphin, who's just a special teams ace. He's a terrible linebacker. If that's the Jets are really they're really going on for tank mode here. But Eric Walden's he's decent. He's not really that good. The Jets have had talks about, this is the article about Zach Links, you can read this on Pro Football Rumors. Finally, things could be picking up for the free agent Eric Walden. The Jets have had talks with the linebacker in recent weeks, according to Brian Costello of the New York Post. Costello adds that he is in a name to keep your eye on for gangrene. Longtime linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. Really good against the run, which is, I guess, what the Jets are looking for. Because, Todd loves his sub packages. He's really good at being a defensive coordinator. He really is good at swapping in and out bodies, subbing in and out. So that could be a good guy for versatility. But he is definitely, if you catch him in play action, it's game over. And he's a pretty good pass rusher too. All linebacker Eric Walden, but not the greatest linebacker in the world. If you're a Browns fan, you've cut Tyvis Powell. So there you go. Not really going to go into detail into that. This is another report. Brandon Albert to report to the Jaguars. Obviously, he's been MIA ever since the Dolphins traded him to Jacksonville for Julius Thomas, which was an absolute steal. At least so far, because Julius is healthy and he's looking really good. So the Lions, Golden Tate wants an extension. He deserves it. Golden Tate, listen, you let Golden Tate go, you have a home in many different places. Golden Tate is a great receiver, one of the best slot guys in the league, one of the most elusive players in the league. So hard to bring down on the open field. I mean, if you're in the NFC North or you're any team that played him last season, you understand how hard it is to guard that man. So yeah, especially how fast Matthew Stafford gets the ball out of his hands and really sets him up nicely in the open field. All right, this next piece of news, the New York Jets have signed linebacker Spencer Pasinger. We already went through that, more of a special teams guy than anything. And if he does start on your team, he is a liability. He's really bad. Okay, let's see here. We got some NFC East rumors here we can go through if you guys want to. Let's go down to the NFC East because they're not talked about enough. Let's see here. The Redskins' Kirk Cousins were finally progressing through. Cousins is still holding on the cards in those negotiations. After all, since it would cost Washington north of $34 million to put the franchise tag on Cousins for the third straight time in 2018, Cousins can afford to play hardball with the Washington Redskins. Says it will still take $50 to $60 million in guaranteed money to get any kind of extension done. So Kirk Cousins got the big balls on him. He really wants that extension. Don't blame the man. If the Redskins play this bad, he could just go anywhere where anybody needs a quarterback. A lot of NFL GMs love Kirk Cousins. So I would not be surprised if he was a Brown, Jet, doesn't matter. He'll go somewhere. The Bills are a sleeper pick for him, for sure. The Bills are still looking for a quarterback. So yeah, there you go. The Eagles could probably have no interest in reuniting with old friend Jeremy Maclin, even though he was supposed to visit with them. So there you go. Jeremy Maclin not going to reunite with the Eagles. Obviously, we're going to get to that a little bit later about Jeremy Maclin. And this news is on Jalen Smith, who obviously who has a ton of talent. It says reports finally got the opportunity to see Cowboys linebacker Jalen Smith on the field yesterday. Reports that Smith did individual workouts and some 7-on-7 work. So that's good for him. Obviously, the kid out of Notre Dame, great player, super athletic. Jalen Smith is, if he can stay healthy and recover from the injury that he had in college, he can be a force to be reckoned with. He would have been a top 5 pick in the draft, but obviously fell all the way to the second round. Could have fell farther. Him and Miles Jack fell a lot farther than they should have, because they're both very talented players. Next news story is about Odell Beckham to get $100 million. Obviously, there were a ton of rumors that the Giants were sick of him, that they might get rid of him, they might trade him. So to give him this extension, I think is a good thing for Giants fans. Obviously, that clarifies that he will be with you for a very, very long time. But there was a ton of rumors that he would leave, and I know a ton of teams would love to have him because he's one of the best players in the league. So moving on from that, I don't think $100 million for a number one wide receiver of his caliber, I don't think is too ridiculous. Let's keep going on here. Roman Harper mulling retirement. Obviously, Roman Harper has been in the league for so long. He's been a part of a ton of great NFL plays in his career. So that's it for that news story. The Giants are going to sign Corbin Bryant, former Buffalo Bill. So if you're a Giants fan, there you go. You got two little news stories for you there. Obviously, this has been a big news story for a while. Nick Fairley awaiting third opinion. Obviously, he signs a big extension this offseason. And then, obviously, he was diagnosed with some kind of heart condition that would prevent him to play football. Obviously, Nick Fairley, when he played next to Sue, had his best years, and he's a very good defensive tackle. He's above average defensive tackle, that is for sure. So that is unfortunate for the New Orleans Saints, whose defense, they look to improve a ton. Obviously, they got a steal in Marshawn Lattimore, and then they got Ramczyk towards the end of the first round, which is a little bit of a head scratcher. I would have won all defense in that draft all day, for sure. So yeah, they did need protection though. Jeremy Maclin is this next news story. Jeremy Maclin leaves the Ravens leaves Ravens visit without a contract. Obviously, he spent 2 days, an extra day with the Buffalo Bills. Then he goes to Baltimore because they really are in need of more targets for Joe Flacco, and then obviously Tyrod Taylor. They've been trying to find another receiver next to Sammy Watkins, or either that or to replace Sammy Watkins, because Sammy consistently cannot stay healthy. Throughout his whole NFL career, has been injured throughout his career. And obviously the Bills gave up a lot to get him. He's been relatively disappointing, but when he's played, he's been great. The Bills wide receiver Walter Powell, he's hit with a suspension, so he's another suspension. Suspension's been given out left and right so far this offseason. Cardinals are to sign Hassan Reddick, obviously the draft pick. If you're a Cardinals fan, you guys got an absolutely great, especially for your scheme. And then you hear the news that the Cardinals are planning to use him as a middle linebacker. Obviously, he played middle linebacker at the Senior Bowl, turned heads there. So he's looked good at it. But I think his best thing he could possibly do is rush the passer, and on third downs you could drop him back in coverage because he's elite at that as well. Obviously, he's a former defensive back coming out of Temple. He walked on at Temple as a defensive back, and he's been such a great player at rushing the passer. I mean, I really don't know how you don't let him do that, because he is a great player, super athletic freak. He was my favorite player coming into the draft when I was studying the draft for the Miami Dolphins. Hassan Reddick was like, he was such a beast. And that was a great pick for the Arizona Cardinals. The Chiefs have signed defensive tackle Cam Thomas. Sorry, I said that weird. Former LA Ram, or St. Louis Ram, or excuse me, LA Ram. The Patriots and Julian Edelman nearing an extension. Obviously, Julian Edelman deserves an extension, and the last extension that he got robbed. He should have got paid a whole lot more, and obviously one of the best receivers out of the slot. The Cowboys are to audition quarterback Ryan Nassib, who had a pretty decent preseason last season. Obviously, the Cowboys are searching for their backup to Dak Prescott, because Dak gets roughed up. He does run out of the pocket, so you definitely need insurance behind him. Let's see here. What other we got here? What other stuff we got here? Let's keep going down the train. The Cardinals are to move Andre Elliott back to running back, which is interesting. Andre Ellington, excuse me. I said Andre Elliott. You're moving him back to running back from wide receiver. Again, Jeremy Maclin did not sign that contract with the Baltimore Ravens, and Dennis Pitta has been released. Obviously, Dennis Pitta, he's a huge question mark, because when he's healthy, he's a pretty decent. Now that he's suffered so many injuries, when he was healthy last season, he wasn't that good, but when he was in his prime, he was a great tight end, and it's unfortunate that injuries derailed his career. Obviously, the Ravens Jets discuss Eric Decker trade. Again, the Ravens are looking for anybody to help improve their receiver core after the retirement of Steve Smith. Brashard Perryman is not somebody you can count on. And he's more of a burner anyway. And obviously Mike Wallace, he's not a number one. So they need a receiver. Because both of those guys, I know from experience with Mike Wallace, he's not a consistent player at all. He'll have one really good game and then just disappear the next. So, and then obviously Brashard Perryman just can't stay healthy. So yeah. All right, moving on to the second segment of the podcast where we go through NFL topics and lists that other people make. I guess we can add that into there because we did that last time, so I figured it would be fun to do it again. And this list is NFL.com's Adam Shine's list, who does a ton of lists on NFL.com. So let's go through this. This is the most indispensable defensive players. Number one, Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is a big part of that Raiders defense. I would agree. Khalil Mack. I mean, last season he was about the only consistent, dominant playmaker on that defense. Their secondary really struggled last season. Their linebackers really struggled last season. And that defensive pass rush was about the only bright light of the. And even that took a while to get going. So Khalil Mack was probably the reason that Raiders defense did okay to begin with. So I would agree with that. Von Miller obviously. Yes, Von Miller does so much for the Denver Broncos. He's the best. Him and Khalil Mack are the best closers in the NFL, and a lot of people don't talk about that when they talk about pass rushers or great pass rushers. Is what they did. What do they do when the game is on the line in the fourth quarter? And both of those guys have most of their sacks come in the fourth quarter, which is a skill that you just wish to have on your defense. I think that, in my opinion, the Dolphins got that in Charles Harris this last past season. I think he's going to do that exact same thing for them. And those two do it better than anybody else. Both of them win you games in the fourth quarter. Luke Kuechly for the Carolina Panthers, absolutely. When Kuechly went out for, I think, 6 games or something like that with the concussion against the Saints, it was noticeably different. The Panthers defense wasn't in the right spots. They weren't the same defense without him, and a lot of players got injured on that team. So yeah, I would agree with that. But all of these guys so far, you can't miss. Aaron Donald for the Rams. I think out of everybody on this list, he would be farther down the list. I know Aaron Donald's a great player. He's a game wrecker, but his hothead, he is such a hothead, and he gets penalized for roughing the passer face mask. He doesn't play, and I know that a lot of that had to do with Jeff Fisher, so hopefully they can correct that. But if they can correct some of those things, I still think that I guess I would agree with that. Vic Beasley, that's probably the worst player on this crapping list so far. The Falcons defense can deal without Vic Beasley and still be relatively okay. Even with Vic Beasley throughout the regular season and into the playoffs, they were still giving up a ton of points. Obviously, that defense got hot towards the end of the year and played a whole lot better, but they really showed their weaknesses in the Super Bowl. Obviously, couldn't hold a lead, and then in the regular season, they were not very good. So Vic Beasley's probably so far the worst. J.J. Watt is 6. The fact that Vic Beasley is over J.J. Watt is hilarious. J.J. Watt is absolutely... Obviously, when he went out, the Texans' defense was still amazing because they still had 10-plus sack guys in Whitney Merciless and Jadeveon Clowney. So they didn't miss a lot because they were so talented. But J.J. Watt is a big part of that defense. Huge part of that defense. But I understand... because you saw the impact. There wasn't that big of a drop-off because the Houston Texans' defense was still pretty dang good. But it's even better with J.J. Watt on it. Tyrann Mathieu for the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that for sure. I would put Earl Thomas over him, though, because if you look at Earl Thomas, when Earl Thomas starts for the Seahawks and when he doesn't, they give up, I think, something like... I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think they're at 500 or below 500 without him, and they're way above 500 with him. So Earl Thomas is definitely somebody I would put over Tyrann Mathieu, J.J. Watt, and Vic Beasley because of the impact. Because it's just the record is so much better with him. I mean, when he is not on that defense, it is a completely different defense. Bobby Wagner for the Bobby Wagner for the Seattle Seahawks is number 8. Again, Earl Thomas, I think, is a better. He just when he leaves, there's such a big hole there. Fletcher Cox for the Philadelphia Eagles, I would agree with that for sure. He definitely deserves to be on this list. That's it. There's only 9. this list is kind of bad because I feel like, why isn't Earl Thomas on here? I feel like he needs to be on here because seriously, go back. I'm sure that somebody has it somewhere, but I can't remember the exact numbers. But he is probably the most important part of the Legion of Boom, because he's such a great player. He really is, especially when they lost Cam Chancellor, even when they had Earl, obviously they weren't as good, but they still won, more games without Cam than they did without Earl. So that's why I would pick Earl for that. I think that's one of the players that's missing from that list, and not to judge, because when I make lists, obviously there's people. I used to judge a list all the time until I started making them. And watch out for a little nugget if you made it this far in this podcast. I am going to be doing top 10 players in each division, and I have to put the list together. I still got a couple players to add, but first obviously is going to be AFC East, for obvious reasons. So look out for that. All right, let's see here. Okay, so this is another topic that's going around the league. 6 teams that can beat the New England Patriots. I made fun of it earlier in the video because it's all that anybody talks about. So let's take a gander at 6 teams that can beat the Patriots. Let's take a gander at this. This is by Connor Orr. You guys can go read about it on NFL.com. This is 6 teams that can beat the Patriots. I think this team is so overrated. 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they quit playing zone defense, maybe they could beat them. They can outscore them. I think that's probably what would happen in a game against both of them. I don't think that defense is shutting them out. The Giants, that I would put them over. I would put them over the Steelers because of their defense. With Olivier Vernon, who has had a lot of success against the Patriots. I know that from firsthand. He's won us a lot of games against them, really roughing up Tom Brady. Because when he gets to the quarterback, he gets to the quarterback and he lays them out. And Olivier Vernon always has great games against them. Obviously, JPP always does too. Jason Pierre-Paul has a long history with the Patriots. And DRC in the slot, at the slot corner role, Eli Apple, and then Janoris Jenkins on both outside, and Landon Collins back there. With Snacks in the middle. I mean, that's one heck of a defense. And their offense is really good with Brandon Marshall, who's also had a lot of success against the Patriots secondary, and Odell Beckham, who's also had a lot of success against the Patriots secondary. So I would have them ranked over. And Eli, obviously, we don't have to get into why he's had success against the Patriots. I would have them over, because they just have the Patriots number. I would have them over the Steelers. Number 3, the Atlanta Falcons. That's kind of, I don't know. The Falcons are a huge question mark, because obviously people forget, it's hard to consistently go back and forth in the playoffs, especially now the Panthers are better, the Saints are better, the Buccaneers are better, but especially the Panthers. They were better than the Falcons last season, but they just got injured. And if they can stay healthy, and they just added to their offense with Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, I think the Falcons are going to have some trouble in that division. And 5, the Miami Dolphins. We get some love here. We got 5. We should be higher than 5. We should be higher than the Falcons and I forgot to say the Raiders. The Raiders. The thing about the Raiders is Derek Carr hasn't played that team yet. And there are a few quarterbacks in the league that have success against the Patriots defense, and Bill Belichick, and that defense. It's very. Let me name them. I'm gonna name them for you. Big Ben has had success. Eli Manning, obviously. Peyton, before he retired, had a lot of success. Aaron Rodgers, rarely I think was it once they've played in the last how many ever years, he had a lot of success. And Tannehill's record, if you compare it to everybody else's, I would compare it to anybody else's. It's probably second to only Eli, or third to maybe Eli and Peyton. In terms of how many wins he's gotten against Bill Belichick in these few years. And I'll put his record up against anybody in the last 5 years. And then the Raiders, I want to see Derek play them before I judge that, because Derek, it's not some easy task going against the mastermind that is Bill Belichick. Okay, so I want to see Derek Carr perform against that defense. And obviously we're number 5. We've had a ton of success against them, so I wouldn't be. We'll see. Seattle Seahawks are number 6. I would put them higher. Both Dolphins and Seahawks need to be higher. They need to be higher than the Raiders and the the Falcons, because both of those teams have had consistent success against the Patriots. If you look at obviously the Seattle Seahawks beat them last season, and we had a winning streak against them, and we would have still had that winning streak if Tannehill didn't get hurt. So, that's what I think. This next list is top wide receiver quarterback combos, and this is by let's see here, who's this by? Gil Brandit. So you guys can go check out this list. So this will be the final topic of the show. And this is top wide receiver quarterback duos in the league. So hopefully we get a half-decent list. The thing I cannot stand about lists, before we get into this, is if you put somebody on there that hasn't played with each other or haven't had any kind of... even haven't even played with each other yet, that is to me ridiculous. Alright, so let's keep going. Alright, so number one is Tom Brady... Tom Brady and wide receiver Brandon Cooks. This is so bad, it's not even funny. Why is this on the list? There's so many... First of all, they haven't even played with each other yet. And Brandon Cooks, listen, he's a speedster, he's a burner, he's going to have a good year with the Patriots, especially with their quick passing game, running after the catch opportunities, all that stuff. But he is not the hardest person... I'm not going to say it. He's not Julio Jones, is basically what I'm saying. So that is a little ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. This is also equally ridiculous. Alex Smith and wide receiver Tyreek Hill. That is stupid. That is stupid. I'm not hating on the list. I think that's a little ridiculous to put Tyreek Hill with Alex Smith, because that is not a duo. I mean, if he's handing the ball off, if Tyreek Hill is returning punts, maybe I fear Tyreek Hill, but I do not fear Alex Smith throwing to Tyreek Hill at all. Put on tape of the AFC divisional game against the Steelers and see how many times Alex Smith missed Tyreek Hill. That is not a duo that any defensive coordinator is gonna go in and fear. They'll fear Tyreek Hill, but they're not going to fear Alex Smith throwing to him. Carson Wentz and wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey. Again, haven't seen it yet, so I would disqualify that. Kirk Cousins and Terrell Pryor. Haven't seen it yet. That's bad, man. You're saying that these guys are better than Matt Ryan and Julio Jones? Or even Brady to Gronk, for God's sakes. Why isn't it? Oh, this is wide receiver. Okay. So I'll take that back. Okay, fine. Then Derek to Cooper, for God's sakes. They're better than those guys. Both of those match. That is insane to me. Especially Matt Ryan to Julio. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Marcus Mariota to Corey Coleman. Deshaun Watson to DeAndre Hopkins. This just continues to get ridiculous. Sam Bradford to Stephon Diggs. Where is Matt Ryan to Julio Jones? Joe Flacco to Brashard Perryman. Maybe this list has some kind of... Jared Goff to wide receiver Robert Woods. Oh my God. Brian Hoyer to wide receiver Pierre Garçon. Okay, hang on, guys. We got it. Maybe I read this wrong. I'm going back to the top. Best. Okay, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson, Ben Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown. Yeah, okay. Even with passing numbers soaring high. Yeah. Expect quarterback and receiver to both play majority of the... Okay. Okay, wait. So those guys don't get on the list because... I don't understand. Okay, so maybe this is... Okay, so I got it wrong. It's rising duos in the league. So I guess people that haven't... Tannehill, okay. What the heck? All right. Okay, let's continue with the list. Cam Newton and wide receiver Curtis Samuel. All right. That's it. Okay, first of all, no love for Jarvis Landry and Ryan Tannehill, or Devontae Parker and Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, X that out. Tannehill and Jarvis connection has been pretty prolific. Obviously, Jarvis is tied with Odell Beckham for most receptions in the first few years of an NFL career, for God's sake. So who do you think is throwing him the football? And he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So for him not to be on this list with people like Curtis Samuel and Cam Newton is a little ridiculous, in my opinion. That's not being biased. That's just numbers, people. Okay? That's just numbers. And some of the, obviously this list, I don't know, this list is a little weird. It's a little weird. It's just a little bit weird. All right, so that is going to be it, guys. This has been the NFL podcast. I am SHAREfactory. Remember, this posts every single Saturday. So if you guys are interested in that, you can do whatever you want. You can go check out more on the channel, I guess you could say. And I want to say, if you guys have any input in the top 10 players of the AFC East, because I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can on this. So if you guys want to put some things in the comment section below, you can help me out a little bit. I'm almost done with the list, but it's getting there. So I am SHAREfactory, and I will see you guys in the next one.